It started as a rumor. A small town mystery people whispered about, but never really believed. They said that if you were awake at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, and you heard 3 slow knocks at your door, you might see her. A little girl, standing barefoot on your porch, wearing a faded green dress. She never says a word, she just looks at you. And if you open the door, she disappears. Some people claimed it was just kids playing pranks. Others swore they saw her. And that afterwards, strange things started happening in their homes. Daniel had never believed in ghost stories. He'd grown up in a big city, where things that went bump in the night usually had a much more logical explanation: pipes, raccoons, someone drunk, walking home. After a messy divorce, he moved to a quiet Midwestern town for a fresh start. It was the kind of place with only 2 gas stations, a diner that closed at 8, and neighbors who waved from their porches. He rented a small, 1-story house at the edge of town, a perfect little escape, or so he thought. The first time he heard the knocks, it was his first week there. He'd stayed up late, unpacking boxes and watching TV in the living room. Around 3 in the morning, a dull, hollow sound came from the front door, 3 slow knocks. Not loud, not frantic. Just patient. He froze for a second, thinking maybe it was a neighbor with an emergency. But when he peeked through the window blinds, the street was empty. He opened the door, and no one was there. The porch was empty. The air felt unusually cold. He told himself it was probably a prank. Kids in small towns got bored. Maybe they wanted to see how the new guy would react. A few nights later, it happened again. This time, he was already half asleep when the knocks came. Same pattern. Same patience. When he looked outside, again, nothing. One afternoon, about a week later, Daniel stopped at the local grocery store. While waiting in line, he overheard the cashier talking to a woman about seeing a barefoot kid on her porch at night. The woman laughed it off, saying her security light came on, but by the time she opened the door, no one was there. Daniel didn't think much of it until another neighbor, an older man named Frank, told him the story. Frank claimed a girl had knocked on his door just before 3 in the morning one winter night years ago. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stared at him until he closed the blinds. The next day his dog refused to go near the door and kept growling at it for hours. Daniel began to realize the barefoot kid was more than just a random prankster. He started asking around quietly. Some people rolled their eyes. Others lowered their voices and told him what they'd seen. The girl was always about 8 or 9 years old, always in a faded green dress, always barefoot, and always at exactly 3 a.m. One man swore he caught her on his security camera, but when he tried to re-watch the footage, the file was corrupted and his camera system stopped working entirely. Daniel still didn't believe it, until the night she came to his door. It was raining hard that night, and the wind rattled the loose shutters on his bedroom window. The power flickered twice just before 3 o'clock, and then he heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Daniel got up and walked to the living room, heart pounding harder than he wanted to admit. He glanced through the peephole. She was there. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9, hair hanging in damp strands across her face, wearing a faded green dress that clung to her from the rain. She stood completely still, her bare feet on the wet wooden boards of the porch. She didn't knock again. She just stared at the door. Daniel swallowed and called out, asking if she was lost or hurt. The girl didn't answer. Instead, she tilted her head slightly to the left, her eyes never leaving the door. He reached for his phone to take a picture, but the screen froze. No matter how many times he tapped it, the camera wouldn't work. When he finally unlatched the door and opened it, she was gone. No sound of footsteps. No splashing through the puddles. Just the rain falling steadily in the dark. Daniel stepped outside and looked around. The street was empty. But when he turned back toward the house, he noticed something strange. His porch was dry. Completely dry. As if no one had been standing there in the rain at all. The next morning, he went outside and saw 3 small wet footprints on the wood, even though the sun had been out for hours. The prints led to the door, but there were none leading away. He couldn't shake it. That night, he searched the local library archives. In the microfilm section, he found an old newspaper clipping from 1979. It told the story of a girl named Emily Carter, who had gone missing during a storm. Witnesses said she had knocked on several doors that night, asking for help, but nobody let her in. Her body was never found. Daniel stared at the grainy black and white photo. Emily wore a dress with the same faded floral pattern he'd seen on the girl's green dress. For weeks after that night, Daniel didn't hear the knocks again, but he couldn't relax. He started sleeping with the porch light on. Sometimes he thought he saw movement at the far end of his yard, when he looked out the window late at night. Then one evening, as he was drifting off to sleep, a sudden thought came to him. Every story he'd heard about her ended the same way: the person never opened the door the first time she knocked. What happens when someone does? He hoped he would never find out. But 2 weeks later, the knocks returned. Louder this time. More urgent. He stayed frozen in bed, listening. The air in the house felt heavier. And then, silence. The next morning, he found a small piece of wet fabric on his porch. It was torn from a green dress. Daniel moved out a month later. People in that town still claim to hear the knocks. Most never answer. Some do. And those who open the door say she never leaves entirely. They say she waits for the night you can't resist opening it again. If you ever find yourself awake at 3 in the morning, and you hear 3 slow knocks at your door, think carefully before you open it, because sometimes, the person on the other side isn't trying to get in. They might be trying to take you with them.